I remember my dad very clearly looking to me at 19 when I was in university, like no one like saying like, hey, you got to get a job after this, right? Like you can't just come back here. This farm will not support both of us, sort of thing, right? So yeah, I didn't always know, but I just think if it's in you, it's in you. It's like sometimes you just don't have a choice. You know, I sold life insurance for a while. It's a very valuable tool if you use it correctly. Yeah. But people don't like talking about it. It's morbid. It's morbid.
It's a tough
conversation. I don't gamble at all. I already farm. That's enough for me.
Welcome to the Flaman Connect podcast, where we share real stories, experiences, and insights from people who know agriculture today and care where it's going in the future. Which province has the most farms?
Like sheer number of farms?
Number of farms. Not by acre, just number of farms.
Alberta.
Okay, I'll say Manitoba.
The answer's Ontario.
Come on.
51,950 farms.
Okay.
According to the 2011 census.
Okay. It's only possible that that's a decade and some inaccurate, but it's probably not.
So 51,000. So which Western Canada province has the most farms?
Okay,
Manitoba. With my original answer.
Yeah.
So that's Alberta. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you got that. 43,000. So it's like 8,000 more in Ontario.
So what's
Same
the
census.
average landmass or like the acreage size? And I feel like they call them hectares out east.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do.
They're not near as big.
No, they're
They're way smaller.
way smaller.
Okay, so let's talk number of horses.
What about them?
Okay, so the number of horses in Canada reached its peak in 1921.
Mm-hmm.
How many were there?
Oh my God.
Okay. Well, some. I bet there
Can
was...
I do it as a percentage of population?
Yeah.
Okay. What would the population of Canada have been in 1921?
Do you want the multiple choice?
I think we're going to need it. Yeah.
I'd take a few multiple choices here.
Okay, 500,000, 1.5 million, 2.5 million, 3.5 million, 4.5 million.
Boy, there had to have been a lot of horses back then.
1921.
I'll go with 3.5. And again, that's just a guess. I would say, so I'm going to estimate the population of Canada at that time was a 1.5 million to 2 million, somewhere in there. And I don't have any basis on that. So I'll say, like a horse and a half per person.
Right.
Been watching a lot of, for reference sake, old school TV lately, like not Yellowstone, but like the spin-offs, and they bet, it kind of dates back to about this time.
Don't they have a 1920 or something?
Well, they all got lots of horses, and then they just steal them from each other. Yeah. And then if someone steals you just shoot them, and then you got their horse now, and it wasn't one per. It was like there was lots of horses.
The average farm in Saskatchewan would have had a bunch of horses, right?
I don't know.
No.
So this is Statistics Canada. So these were reported on farm. This doesn't include wild horses.
And this is pre-tractor, right?
Yeah, but even then, man. So what did you say? 1.5 is what I think. What did you say?
Said 3.5.
I'll go 1.5. That still seems too high, but
okay. According to Statistics Canada, 3,451,752 horses.
Ooh.
That's a lot of horses.
So how do they know that number? Like, I don't think there's a horse registry anywhere in 1920.
Carrier pigeon, just like we get census letters in the mail. They just had these pigeons that just ripped around and it's like, here, fill this out. We'll wait.
So the survey was, how much land do you farm? How many horses do you have?
That's all.
That's it.
Maybe, yeah. How many people in your house?
Yeah.
How many chickens do you have?
Okay, now for comparison's sake, the Canadian equine industry did a study on horse population, and they found that today there's approximately 509,000 horses in Canada. So quite a dip from the about 3.4 billion that there were in 1921. Now we're going to bring in Jonathan Stratton. He is the Senior Manager of Customer Service and Parts for Flaman. Now, we talk a lot about best-in-class service as part of Grain Systems Department. We had several discussions on what best-in-class service looks like. And at first, we didn't really know what it looked like, but we knew what it didn't look like. And we kind of went from there and drew up a plan. And it's always evolving. Now, John, can you talk a bit about first-in-class service?
Being best in class, but not necessarily knowing what it looks like. Knowing the framework, the people together making a difference was huge in that. But when you come to some of the solutions and some of the value, there's one thing too that quite often echoes in that best in class, and it's a lot of the solutions are proactive base, right?
Yeah.
So now rather than having all the equipment and being ready to, go and fight fires, essentially, for lack of better words, and when it dryer's down, which we do as well, but now they're ahead of it. They're out in front of them, making sure these things are fired up and tuned up and ready for optimal performance in the field. So,
has technology in general changed how service works from, say, the days of Grandpa Frank and Southie to now hundreds of employees and thousands of customers at Flaman?
Oh, absolutely. And if you look at our product offering from the road, most of it looks, pretty simple, and a lot of it's essentially not that different from the way it was years ago. But when you take a closer look at it, even augers and stuff with basic small engines, the amount of computer technology that's on board driving that stuff, I mean, grain handling and the sophistication level of that is huge. But there's so much more automation, and even like a grain auger now, it walks around. It can, some of them now are almost you can almost be remote control. You don't even need to walk beside them. And that's come in like larger stuff a long time ago, but now it's just about in everything we utilize, right? It's not just needing to do it for the automotive and the large ag side of things. It's right into our trailers, our small ag stuff. There's a lot of technology into it, so we need to understand how it works and how to repair it. Because in the serviceability of that, it changes what you need to service, right? No longer are you just fixing the broken piece of the broken item. It's what goes wrong sometimes is the technology. So you need to have a service team that's first on it and understands it.
Thanks, John. Now, as part of the service team, I can say that we do put a lot of effort into the off season, where we train our service techs on various pieces of equipment. We go to their facilities and learn from the R&D people at the facilities. And we also put together things, education sessions for our customers as well, to keep them up to date on their equipment as well. So now it's time to bring in our featured guest. He is the owner-operator of Peterson Grain Processors. Welcome, Jason Basset.
Thanks for having me.
So tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Oh, I grew up on a mixed farm by Bruno, Saskatchewan, about an hour, just slightly less than an hour east of here. When I was growing up, it was just me and my mom and dad, and I'm the oldest of four boys. I have three younger brothers. And after that, I went to university, got my degree in agricultural economics, which is a fancy way of saying I know how to make really good spreadsheets. And after that, I've done a bunch of different things. I worked in the financial services industry for a while, and then in about 2008 or 2007, started farming my own land. In 2008, purchased a local seed cleaning operation. And at first, just like a lot of people, did that, part-time or while still holding a job or a part-time job. And then just over the number of years have phased into doing it full-time.
There are so many farming families that can relate to like exactly how your farming life and farming careers went. You got three other brothers. So there's four boys. There's, a farm in call it rural community that two of those boys have moved to the city. One still lives across the road, but isn't actively farming. I don't know how active your dad still is.
He's as active as he wants to be.
Yeah.
I tell him you can quit anytime, but just don't tell me on November 1st, not April 1st or May 1st. He's like, I don't do as much as I used to. I'm like, Dad, do whatever you feel like doing.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll never tell him not to come, so.
As long as he still comes out and he
keeps him active.
Yeah, retirement. I think we might have even talked about this on the podcast too, but like retirement's hard on people just from you do all this work throughout your life to live, but in that process, you create an identity for yourself. And then when you retire, like, unless you put some intention to what you want to do when you retire and what that's going to look like, you often see a lot of people's identities fade, or they get depressed, or anyway, so as long as your dad still comes out there,
I think he still gets more excited than at seeding and harvest time than I do. I'm just like, just calm down, Dad. We'll go right away here. Yeah,
Does he ever get mad?
Not anymore. I mean, he used to, but I mean, he's pretty laid back now.
How mad did he used to get? Because if you guys have ever seen his dad, the guy cannot get mad. And he's like, that's not true. I'm like, no.
Well, I've seen my dad get mad. Yeah. I mean, just think about it. Now that I've, progressed through life, having more birthdays, you just get calmer over time.
Yeah.
I remember my dad, when he had 4 little boys at home, probably couldn't get a moment's peace. And he was also bouncing around in a Case 2290 with, with poor air conditioning and working summer follow and stuff like that. Our lives are easier. There's no question, And as you get older, your life gets easier, especially if you, have some fortunate breaks along the way. So yeah, I mean, he would get mad back then for sure. But I mean, everyone who's had kids in their house tests their patience, I'm sure, Now you see the grandpa version of Ronnie now. He's laid back and spending time with his grandkids. He loves it. Yeah. So
what's the angriest you remember your dad getting at you?
Oh man. Nothing really stands out. I mean, I did roll the garden tractor one time. We had this little diesel 18 horse Case IH garden tractor and had like a trailing mower, not a belly mower. And Dad used to just cut the edge of the road. But our driveway laneway was built by my grandpa or great grandpa. They didn't have proper road building equipments in the ditches. Are sharp slopes. Yeah. And I thought, well, I was like 12. And I'm like, oh, Dad does it. I can do it. Hey, I cut the rest of the yard. Well, I got to a real steep part and it had the rollover protective stuff and whatever. And yeah, I broke a bolt. That was about it. Right. Like that. But yeah, he was pretty mad that time. Just things you think you can do before you actually can't do them. Yeah.
You only did that once. Yeah.
No, actually I did it twice.
Never mind.
The second time I definitely should have known better. I was a lot older and yeah. So
what do you think sets the ag industry apart from others?
Oh, where do you want to start? I don't know. If you're thinking about just in terms of other industries, I think that if you're going to be in the ag industry, you have to be adaptable. Like most farmers I know, and I would be part of this community, is they pretty much can do a little bit of everything, right? And depending on, where you farm and what type of farming you do, but you have to be at different times, like a business manager, an accountant, grain marketer, a physical laborer, a manager of people. You have to be able to drive truck and you have to be a mechanic. You have to do all those things sometimes simultaneously, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess to me, that's what really appeals to me about it. Is it it's not the same job every day.
Every day is different.
Mm-hmm. Every day is different. Yeah. So that's one of the things that I guess I shouldn't say it drew me to it because it's in you or it's not. Like I did other jobs for a while. There were years I wasn't that active on the farm. My younger brothers were helping Dad. I was working, but I always came back.
Were you always thinking you were going to be a farmer?
No,
in the back of your mind, or no?
Honestly, Mitch, I didn't know at 22 or 3 or whatever. No, I didn't know what I was going to do. I was 19. And, our farms wasn't big and it's not huge now. And it's like, I remember my dad very clearly looking to me at 19 when I was in university, like no one saying like, hey, you got to get a job after this, right? Like you can't just come back here. This farm will not support both of us sort of thing. Right. So, and I mean, things were different then, but I mean, that was, the late 90s, but it's like, I didn't always know, but I just think if it's in you, it's in you. It's like, sometimes you just don't have a choice. There's one of my favorite movies. They, like someone asked somebody if, he'd choose the same calling again. He goes, what choice? Right. Like there was no choice in me. I always just ended up there. Right. Yeah. So
what about speak to that, like with your brothers and stuff too? Cause it almost seems like at any minute, maybe one of them could have or would have came back and farmed depending on what their careers looked like. Or
I can't speak for them, but I know at different points, the first year when I rented land, it wasn't just me. It was a partnership between myself and Jeff and Jordan, right? Like my two youngest brothers. So the first year, and then after a year of doing it, they're kind of like, I don't know, you have to be willing to take on, a certain amount of risk. I don't gamble at all. I already farm. That's enough for me. Like, I have friends who are into sports betting or go into the casino or Vegas. And I'm like, I already have enough risk in my life. I'm happy with the amount of risk in my life. But other people have it to them to not have any risk, right? Like, I mean, you have to be comfortable with a certain level of debt and things like that, and just understanding the long game and all that sort of stuff, right?
when you started to make more of the decisions on the farm, what were some of the, I would say, friction points between you and your dad and how you wanted to do some things and he didn't?
Well, I was always more of an early adopter of technology. I always figure I'm unique because when I started in school, we didn't have computers, or there was one computer for the whole school. And then in grade 8 or 9, they installed a computer lab where, each student had one for a period a day or whatever. And that was mind bending, but to get to the point where we are now. So we came through the progress, and I am no IT or, IT person or anything like that. But I've taken it all the way up. And then my dad was he was, used to his ways, right? And it worked for 40 years. So why would he change, right? But now he thinks auto steer is the greatest thing in the world. And you can't combine unless your auto steer's working in your combine.
That's
and, so it's like, well, no, you still can, Dad. I'll fix it when I get there, sort of thing, But yeah, so that wasn't a friction point, I would say. Like at some point I just said, Dad, we have to do this, right? And I give my dad credit. Like he just slowly over time, more responsibility, more decision making. Transitioned over to me. I don't think there was a lot of friction, really, So
and kudos to him, because that can be a
problem.
In a lot of farms, and a lot of I'll say the older generation aren't adapt to change,
right? And they don't like letting go of control. And I give my dad credit for that too. I don't know why that is, but I'm sure we all know people in here where the father and son relationship is a little bit combative, but ours isn't like that, really, So we seem to get along quite well. And like I said, I give my dad credit for that because he wasn't, he wasn't really resistant to the change. At some point when I was involved and had money involved in the farm, I just started buying stuff like that, And then, there were government programs too that helped. There was that. They would pay like 30% of the cost of installing even a light bar in your tractor and stuff like that. So it was a big help. So, yeah.
Farms are family businesses. There's no other way to say it. And so I've grown up in a family business as well. And the discussions about transitioning business or transitioning wealth or, different generations and stuff. How is that? I'm always interested in this, specifically on the farm side. It's so fun to watch agriculture families pass on the farm and create future generations. And it's the saddest thing when you see people fight or brothers never talk to each other again. Actually, anyway, it's super disappointing when you see that. But how did it go? How did it go in your family? And you don't have to share specifics, but I'm always curious because I believe you and your brothers get along quite well. And I believe your family, must have put some intention behind what does the farm look like. And lots of people just don't have the conversation, and then dad dies, and then we got this land, and then we fight, and then even though the land is your livelihood, you use the land to that's your job. If your brother was, say, a lawyer, he don't need the land for his livelihood, right? So
but now with the value of land,
right,
it's because it might become even more of a problem if there isn't a plan in place because man, you start looking at what, land values have done in the last decade and people are and then non-farming kids, are oh man, why should that person get that, and I, you asked about our farm, without getting too deep into the weeds, I give my parents a lot of credit. They're just we don't want that. We don't want you guys fighting.
Yeah.
So I don't know, no free ads, right? But we use an accounting firm. We were all sat in a room like this one and they're like, what do you expect? What do you want?
Oh,
and
cool.
it was transcribed and we all got a copy of it.
Yep.
So there's no saying, oh, I said this. No, you said that. Oops, sorry, I hit my mic. Yeah. So it's it was very clear and out on the table. And what do you expect? And it was up to my parents then to decide what to do. So they put a plan in place that's this is what happens if this, this, and this. And they even have they account for divorce, untimely death, all that sort of stuff. And you work, I don't know. I read a book one time called The Death of Expertise, whereas people now just, Google, WebMD and they think they're expert. Yeah. And I'm just we're not experts. You might be an expert in one field, but that doesn't make you an expert in another field. So it's if you find people, financial advisors who deal with, retirement savings and life insurance, and then you have accountants that you trust and lawyers that you trust. If you bring those people in, they will put together a plan for you. Is it cheap? No, it's not cheap at all. But what else isn't cheap? Fighting over probate and land title. And all of a sudden, the farm goes under because there wasn't a plan in place or something like that. And I'm just I give my parents credit. They just got out ahead of it. like, this was like 10 years ago. Right. So
That's amazing.
yeah, they were just like, look, we're thinking about retiring or phasing out. And so yeah, we just sat down and there was a playbook and you do this, this, and this. And then if you want to keep the farm going, you do this. And it was just
Did it get colorful at all? Or was it like pretty amicable? Like,
no, I think that's the thing. Like, they told us what was going to happen. They met with our accounting firm and they just like, yeah, and then they told us individually and we went in the room and everyone was just saying like, basically it was like, speak now or forever hold your peace sort of thing. Right.
That's awesome.
It was all out on the table and yeah, they got out in front of it, I guess. I think, I sold life insurance for a while. It's a very valuable tool if you use it correctly. Yeah. But people don't like talking about it. It's morbid. It's morbid.
It's a tough
conversation. A lot of people don't recognize the tool and the valuable thing it can be for increasing or protecting your wealth. It's really what it's there for. That's, and then, how to use it properly and all that sort of stuff. So you just have to be smart about it. And I give my parents credit. They were out in front of it.
It's crazy. So there's I'll say for people that sell life insurance, there's a massive market for that because it speaks to the transitioning of wealth through a business. In most cases, a family business, call it. But it's crazy. I think the first time I ever understood that would have been a discussion we had because you're relatively passionate about it because it's a tool. It is literally a tool. And the other thing about like life insurance, like lots of people don't talk about it. It's super disappointing how many people don't have a will. They just like, it's the one thing is going to happen. And if it goes to plan, it'll happen like later on. And then when it doesn't go to plan, you see a lot of people suffer because they don't have their shit together. But that was one thing that we talked about, like you and I'm sure I learned it from you, was how to use life insurance that way. You would not believe how many people have approached me since then. That was a long time ago. And like, I'll say pitch the same idea. Because I'll say like they get it in the sense of like, the tool, but it was like, it's becoming seemingly a very common tool to be pulling money in and out and different tax shelters, call it, and just intelligent way of transitioning.
It's all on the up and up. The CRA knows exactly what's happening with all that stuff. And I've discussed it with accountants. They're like, oh yeah, we've sat in on seminar about this, right? Like, yeah. I mean, it's I just say, I would tell people all the time, I don't sell it anymore. I have to put the disclaimer in. I am not legally qualified to give anybody advice. I have a person you can talk to. He's fantastic at it. But I'm just like, if you understand how to use it, it's an excellent tool. Excellent tool.
The great thing, it's becoming a rarity where those conversations are not happening.
Yes,
right? There's just too much at stake. If you look at land values 10 years ago and where they're at now, there's just way too much at stake.
Yeah, it's just the whole conversation in general. It's like, you can't wait till the first parent passes away. That's too late.
It's ugly.
Yeah, it's too late. Yeah.
Getting back into your childhood a little bit, I'm from a town about 45 minutes further away from Saskatoon. And we hated going to Bruno because Bruno would kick our butts in anything, whether it's hockey, whether it's ball, and I just despise going there. The only good part about that is you get to stop at Dairy Queen and Humboldt. What is it about Bruno and the production of athletes that have come out of there?
Well, I think it's cyclical. I see it now. I don't have any kids of my own playing like minor hockey or minor ball or anything like that, but my age group, they were loaded with great athletic people. And then now I see it's the opposite. Like,
oh, really?
Now there's local towns who I don't think I ever lost a game to, and now their kids are just dominating my nephew. Yeah. And we're like, man, that seems backwards. We never lost.
How do we let this happen?
That never happened. It's just cyclical, I think, So, but when I played senior hockey, there was a big rivalry between our two towns for sure.
So, what would be the pinnacle of your athletic career? Like,
it was probably in broomball, not in hockey, but yeah.
Tell us, actually, let's talk about broomball a bit. I feel like broomball is a relatively underrated sport, and if it wasn't for your family, I don't think I would know much or anything about it. But you're from a pocket that dominated in broomball, and I feel like there's a few of those pockets around the province that just has a broomball community, and they do well.
Yeah, there's a few. There's a certain around Regina, it was always big, and then you had towns like Odessa and Balgony who had lots of teams, and then around Saskatoon, there was never, Saskatoon faded out before. There used to be a huge league in Saskatoon and a massive tournament called the Gold Broom here that went for over 50 years. I don't remember how many years it went. I think COVID shut it down. It was maybe 52 years or something consecutively. It used to be they'd have 68 teams and play 24 hours a day. That's how big this tournament was back in the 70s.
I literally came and watched probably you play at it.
And then, Bruno always had lots of broomball. It's really about people who continue it on after their playing careers, right? If people just let it go after, but we've had some good people in Bruno just continue it on. One person in particular, Ray Bender, he just never let broomball die. He broke his leg playing and got his sons into it and got recruited players and taught us the correct way. And then Aberdeen's really turned into kind of a broomball hotbed now. And then further north, you've got Big River and especially Debden. Debden's a big. The Debden U20 girls have won back-to-back national championships.
Really?
So, yeah.
Wow.
And I think they're well positioned to do it again this year. So, yeah.
Where all is it located in Canada? Is it across all provinces? Is it?
Yeah, the first nationals I went to had a rep from pretty much every province and territory, but now it's dwindled. Like a lot of them don't send representatives anymore. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's a offshoot of hockey for people who don't know. You're running on rubberized shoes on the ice, and the red line is offside, and the nets are a little bit bigger, and a few different rules, but a lot of the skills translate. But yeah.
What are the shoes like? Talk about the shoes for Broomball.
Yeah, well, they've changed so much. I guess there's new ones now that are unbelievable in terms of like traction and being able to cut and move, but they came after I retired. But yeah, the shoes they're kind of like, they probably originated like a Converse tennis or basketball shoe, but they have thick rubber soles to grip the ice better. And they have, I don't know what you'd call them, like little fingers or little tabs that flex and make it even easier. And some of them have pockets. Those are outdoor shoes, but yeah, they're just designed to give you better traction on the ice. They help, but I guess these new ones, there's some new ones out of the US that are just unbelievable. I've never worn them, but yeah, I guess they're awesome.
I mean, like your winter tires then.
A little bit. Yeah. Same idea. Yeah. Softer rubber. And exactly. And then the ball is a orange ball about this size. I don't know, 6-8 inches across, and should be properly inflated. And then the brooms started as like brooms, literal brooms. Yeah. I have one my dad had when he played. It was a broom cut off and then wrapped with electrical tape. So that's if you can without the long bristles, and that's how they originated, right? And then they evolved from there to having graphite and aluminum shafts and carbon fiber shafts, and now the heads can be curved a little bit, and just like everything else, technology and the equipment's gotten better. But yeah, so you asked about my pinnacle. Yeah, our team won nationals 3 out of 4 years from 2004 to 2007, and we're close a couple other times.
What team was that?
The Bruno Axemen.
The Bruno Axemen. Mm-hmm. That is a solid sports name.
It's all right. Yeah. I can't take credit. I think they were formed in like 1982 or something like that, and they're still going strong. They won provincials this year. So yeah.
The hockey is the Bruno T-Birds, right? Is that what you guys are always called?
Yeah, that's the senior team. Yeah. That was because the Ford dealer was the first sponsor.
Oh,
that's cool.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ford dealer in town.
They still have a pretty good car show in Bruno too.
Yeah, they have a big car show the last Sunday in July for anyone who's interested. And
they call it the Cherry Festival. Is that
like there's a cherry orchard attached to what used to be the old convent, and now it's I guess it would be like a Catholic boarding school. I don't want to really call it what it's not. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. But there's a cherry grove in there, and they produce fresh cherries. And then they used to have like a full weekend, but now it's just Cherry Sunday and the car show.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Cherries grow in Saskatchewan.
Yeah, 100%.
I thought they had to come from BC. I thought they had to come from BC.
I know nothing about it. I couldn't.
So we had cherries on the farm, but they were just like little, like they're tart, like really
they're
sour.
Called choke cherries. That's different.
No, that's not a choke cherry. No, so they're a little bigger.
They're like real. Are they pin cherries?
They're different. They're smaller than a cherry you'd buy in the store, but they're
smaller.
A bright red cherry that have a big pit in it. And it takes a lot of sugar to make them palatable, but they are pretty tasty. Yeah.
Or is the sugar tasty?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
I'll point to a camera and be like, if you know anything about cherries, phone in at.
Please click like or subscribe.
They're probably a close cousin of the Saskatoon berry, I would guess.
Probably. Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. If I think about it.
Who are some of the leaders of influence within the ag industry that you look up to?
Nobody political. We are poorly represented there. Leaders of influence.
What about innovators?
Well, I think like Saskatchewan's pretty clearly a hub of agricultural innovation. I mean, if you look at, not too far from where Regan grew up, like Borgo Industries, Depker Industries, you go southeast, like we're at Seahawk, which is now Vaterstad. I mean, you could argue that people in Saskatchewan have advanced seeding technology more than anywhere else in the world. That and hockey coaches. We produce that better than anybody. I'm serious. Per capita, look at the NHL. Look at everyone who's Saskatchewan.
It's valid.
It's very valid. So it's like, man, oh man, yeah, like that. I mean, like Flexicoil here in Saskatoon. I'm missing lots, I'm sure, but man, I mean, it's not only Saskatchewan, it's Western Canada, but Saskatchewan per capita produces. And I think it's just some of that's just that industrious spirits of like, there's got to be a better way to do this. One of my favorite sayings is the most dangerous thing you can say is, well, we've always done it this way.
What do you feel this industry will look like in 10 years?
Oh man, I don't know.
Yeah.
See, I think about this because I'm in my mid 40s and I don't have kids coming to take over the farm. So, it's the end of the line, for our family farm is me. And it's like, I don't know. 10 years ago, I never thought it would look like this. Just, we've been through a lot of stuff over the last 10 years, just in terms of, COVID and then, extremely high grain prices and droughts and, lower grain prices. And it's like the volatility seems like it's off the charts, just land prices, land rent prices, all that sort of stuff. What's it going to look like in 10 years? I don't know.
Well, it happens fast.
Yeah.
Dude. Just when, we're going through these contacts on our phones and the profile picture for you, I wouldn't guess I've known you for 10 years, although looking back, it's like, yeah, it's actually closer to 15. Like, it happens fast.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I don't know. Like, I'm a big, like, we're definitely in a period of the crazy inflation right now.
Yeah.
And, things like that can really alter the landscape as they did 45 years ago in the early 80s or 40 years ago, right? Like that was a big time change in the industry back then. So, yeah, man, what's going to look like in 10 years? I think there's going to be even bigger, corporate farms, things like that are just going to continue to grow. And, technology is going to become, honestly, drone spraying, I think, is the way of the future. I don't know how it's going to get regulated or how you're going to be able to get the capacity that you need, but I can just see it. Like, we cover the land so much in the sprayers. And if you could do that remotely and without leaving tracks in the field autonomously and not relying on, when the helicopter or plane can show up and, timing, if you have the access to that on the farm, like, man, I kind of saw high clearance sprayers coming that way. I wish I'd even got in earlier with that, but now I look at drones and I'm like, oh, they'll figure that out. Like, it'll be at that level at some point. Like,
because they'll be GPS guided and they'll have a map of which needs more spray, which needs less spray, and which needs no spray.
Yeah. There's the technology is now to like, there's a weed there, just spray that. Turn that nozzle on and spray that weed, not blanket the whole field, right? Which again goes back to the sustainability and no waste and all that sort of stuff. But to me, that's like just a flashing green light. It's like, oh yeah, this is, I don't know how, because I know there's regulation of having all these drones buzzing around and they can only do at most like 40 acres at a pop now. So it's now, but I mean, like, 10 years ago, you couldn't do half the stuff that we can do now. So it's like, it's exponential growth. That's what it is.
Okay. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jason. Our guest today was Jason Basset from Peterson Grain, and I'm your host, Trevor Grinde, along with Regan Kunz and Mitch Flaman. Thank you for joining us on Flaman Connect.